This is how justice is served. This person drives through this crowd on purpose. The people, the crowd, they drag him out of the car and they take care of business. They beat the snot out of this dude. They even shot his ass before the cops got there. That, my friends, is justice. It's an extreme example, mind you, of justice, but it is, in fact, justice.
We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Toward Anarchy, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Michael Storm, and it is my pleasure to be here, as always, every week, right here, Saturday night. It's prime time. We're worldwide on the Republic Broadcasting Network, and you can find me on Facebook and X and Instagram at Toward Anarchy. Is the, just facebook.com/Toward Anarchy, and boom, there you are. I'm right there. I'm easy to find, and those are my main playgrounds, although I do have my playground of choice, towardanarchy.com. But wherever you find me, wherever you're listening to the show at, whatever platform it's on, because I try to put it out there everywhere, wherever you find it, even if it's just a snippet, if it's one of the comic book reviews, something along those lines, please just take 1 second. That's all it takes to click that like button. It makes all the difference in the world to me, and I appreciate it. And it lets me know that you're out there. And it's the next big step, I think, in taking this thing to the next level, and so I need your help with that, and I appreciate that like, and it's an easy thing to do. I ask you to do it up front because you get into listening, you do the thing, you get into doing what you're doing around the house as you're listening, or whatever, at work while you're listening, and then you forget, it moves on to the next show, or whatever, the song or that you're listening to, and you forget, and so I ask you to do it. Now, you can always take it back later, but, hopefully you'll forget that. If for some reason you didn't like it and thought that you should just actually take that like away. God, what a horrible thing to do to a person. Give them a like and then take it away. I get pictures of an episode of Family Guy when is it Peter? I guess it's Joe comes knocking on the door, and it's either Peter or Brian, and somebody is forcing them to say, maybe Stewie is forcing them to say things really nice to Joe and then take the compliments back, and right there on the spot. Oh, what a terrible thing to say, make him feel really good and then take it right back, and it's all just, oh, that's so mean. Why would you even think of such a thing? TowardAnarchy.com, that's the place to truly follow along. That's my playground. That's where I have, I've carved out my little niche on the internet, and it's fantastic. It really is. It's such a fun thing to be able to do, to go each week and just put my entire self out there in front of the world, as it were, and let everybody decide for themselves. And it's neat to watch the exchanges. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago or something about how I had noticed the trends, and I don't watch this stuff that often. I don't ask for much in this because I tell you honestly up front that I do it for me, that it's mostly about me, that I hope you get something out of it, and I hope people like it and share it, and that other people get something out of it. But it's a big deal for me, and it has to be. It has to be for me, for it to be passionate, for it to be honest, for me to be as truthful about the things that I talk about as I can. There's no reason for me to alter any perception of the information that I'm sending in any other way that I see it, because it's about me in that respect. And so you know that it's always truthful and it's always honest. It doesn't have to be right in your world or wrong in anybody else's world. It just has to be truthful and honest, and then the rest of it you get to decide for yourself. And then I'm as straight up and honest about that as I can possibly be. That the things that I talk about, aside from the obvious parts of life, the things that come with 52 years of life and a wonderful family and children that are successful and happy, and a happy home life, and my happy little small business, and all the things that I've been able to succeed at, aside from those truthful, honest, they're undeniable things. A lot of the other stuff is opinion, and it's up there for somebody to decide. Although I think that I choose to be on the right side of things, and by the right side of things, I don't mean the political right of things. Obviously not. If the show is called Toward Anarchy, obviously I've made my decision about the politics of things and whether it works or not, and whether there's any value in it, and it's that value is very limited. I think the real value in relationships with people is an honest giving and taking relationship that's voluntary, that doesn't involve coercion or force or demands, unreasonable demands of you as a person, or the other person in the relationship, for that matter, anybody in the relationship. No, there are no excessive demands based on whatever current political whim is running through the society. That's not how you build good relationships. Good relationships are built on the conversations that you have together, and the things that you share in common, and that you do in common without political division, without some ulterior motives, some external, in most cases, when it comes to these political or social things, that don't necessarily. There's a lot of people walking around doing things that they wouldn't do in society morally at all, if it wasn't accepted within our society that they do it. Or on the other hand, on the reverse of that is they wouldn't do these things if they didn't feel like they were forced to, because of the direction our society it takes, and our political society in particular, because we have an entire class of people that lives off the rest of us and claims to be subservient to us, but is not. It actually rules over us and robs us at the same time for the reward of getting to rule over us. It's really a very sick thing, and I could keep going, but I got to get the basics out of the way, because again, I don't ask too much. I don't ask a lot. I try to keep it real simple and make it honest, and I'll explain that here in a minute, and you decide for yourself. But there's tons to follow along with. TowardAnarchy.com, number 2526. Number 2526, episode number 2526, is what you're looking for when you get there. You'll notice Dr. Dean Lloyd is my guest, and he'll be coming up in the second half of the show, and we will have a fantastic conversation with him, as we always do, because he's a great friend and a great healer and facilitator, and just wonderful to converse with, because the dude is just smart. He's a smart guy, and he has a lot of really clear understanding and vision of what he knows and what it means to him in terms of value. That's kind of what I was saying about myself there and what I do here and try to present it. It's one of the reasons that Dr. Lloyd and I have become really good friends, is because of that simple fact that we share this particular desire to be honest and truthful about the way that we present the things that we present, and use that information, those tools, those things that we have, that we've discovered in life, that we find through the internet, wherever it is, and to be able to find a space and a time and a place to present that and give that to you as a thing to empower you, to make yourself smarter, more aware, whatever it is, because I often point out that there's a simple understanding and knowledge, right? There's what you know, and then there's wisdom, and I've always looked at wisdom being the ability to know what you don't know. And so it was interesting because there was a quote today that I came across. I didn't know who the guy was. The farmer and manufacturer can no more live without profit than the laborer without wages. And that's David Ricardo, and he apparently is this a British economist and politician, literally used his money to buy a seat in Parliament, and then sells it off at one point. That's a whole interesting thing. But I didn't know anything about the guy before, and so I kind of zipped through the little wiki, and I shared the link with you there for the Wikipedia link. I always do. It's not about, again, it's just about having the information. It's about having a starting point, and it's not about me believing every word that this man has ever said or ever, well, I guess he won't be saying any more words. His portrait was circa 1821, but at any rate, anything that he may have said in the past, it doesn't mean that I believe it, that I rubber stamp it, that it's going to be right. It's just that this one statement that he made is pretty clear and pretty understandable for anyone who's not economically ignorant. And somebody who is economically ignorant, I don't use ignorance in that in a mean sense. It's just in the factual sense that you don't know. It's a great place to start, right? And so there's the link, and it's there. If you want to know more about David Ricardo, you can follow all that's through there. But I thought it was really interesting in just reading through it how one of his friends, John Lewis Mallet, I don't know, maybe he's somebody important. I guess they didn't link him here, did they? Must not be that important because all these other guys, James Mills, of course, J.S. Mill, he has a link, and then Thomas Malthus, and the Malthus Society, and all those guys have links, but this guy doesn't have a link. So his friend John Lewis Mallet described Ricardo's conviction in his beliefs, though he expressed doubts about Ricardo's disregard for experience and practice. And I don't disregard experience and practice at all, but not by any means. And I don't necessarily what they mean when they say that he disregards it. But there's an idea. It's compatible with that idea of what you know and what you have the ability to know. It's the same with experience and practice. You don't have to experience something to know what someone else is going through specifically. We're human. It's not like the machines. It's not like the AI. We do understand. We do have the capacity to understand when somebody describes a pain, when somebody describes a loss, when somebody describes a win, when they describe joy. So we absolutely don't specifically have to experience a particular pain or a particular joy. Certain life experiences absolutely help, and of course practice helps too, but the willingness, the ability to, the open-mindedness, the expansion of the mind prior, all through, during, before, after, that's the beauty of expanding the mind. It always was, it never was, and it always will be, it never will be. It's all of these these things. And so that ability to do that is so much more important necessarily. It's not necessarily important in terms of instance and discovery, but it's certainly more important to the individual and to everybody else who's not necessarily discovering but is coming along after somebody else has discovered something and learning it. And so to suggest that a particular group of people, say college or somebody anointed by a particular authority, maybe the AMA or something along those lines. That's a Freudian, isn't it? Along those lines, that authority is absolutely and totally and perfectly right, and we know differently, we know better, we know the truth that you don't have to be a certified genius. You don't have to have particular pieces of paper to have knowledge and to be knowledgeable and to be wise, and more importantly, to be wise and open to knowledge and to accepting a lot of things at face value. I think that's kind of important, and that's something maybe we'll come back to at another time because I do mention it a lot. But there is so much more to talk about, especially after having been gone for a week. I missed you last week, and I tell you, it's tough because it wasn't just one of those things. It wasn't like, oh, you know what, I'm going on vacation, and it would be nice to have a day off, and where I can think, oh, it's cool. I miss being in my spot and doing my thing, but I'm on vacation, and now it's time for a reset, and it's time for to think about other things and do different things and to take a break from the normal things. But that's not what it was. It was family. I had to deal with some family stuff, and it's not over. It's just the beginning. In fact, there's so much more to go. That's if we're lucky and unlucky at the same time. You know how that is when there's more to do, and it just is a fact that sometimes there's more to do. But I wanted to remind you quite selflessly to support the network. Support Republic Broadcasting, republicbroadcasting.org. Over on the left-hand side, there's a little button. It's kind of a yellowish-orange button. It's almost the same as almost the same color, a little more yellow, as my little note card that I keep right here handy just to, I don't have to think about it. It's right there in front of me. republicbroadcasting.org. Yes, that's the website. It's not .com. It's not some other thing. It's .org. republicbroadcasting.org. It's right there in front of me. Click that donate button over there on the left-hand side, and a couple of clicks away from that, it's a one-time, it's a regular donation, it's the amount you can afford, it's whatever you deem necessary to support free speech, and able, what's within your ability to do. That's extremely important, I think. If you want to give us a call, you can do that too. It's 800-724-2719. It's extension 3 if you want to talk to somebody specifically about how you can help out with monies and such to help support the network. Otherwise, you can definitely just send a check or money order if you've already made up your mind, if you know, and many people have for many, many years now. You guys are amazing, and please keep doing it because it's no easier today than it was yesterday. With the economy, it's even a little bit harder today than it was yesterday. 2251, it's RBN, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. And then, of course, you can visit shoprbn.com for the win-win. You support the advertisers. They support the show. I get, it's my pleasure to do that and to be on a part of the network and to make sure to plug the network each time that I'm up here and I have the platform and I have the microphone. I think it's important for me to do that because they are an amazing space for people to come and do this, and they have been for a long time, and there's a lot of good truth to be had throughout the entirety of the network. It's not just my 2 hours, actually 3, because I get that we have, myself and Dr. Dean Lloyd are doing the 1 hour live show on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's called Your Health and Mind. we're just, we're just doing what we normally do for the regular shows, but with a little bit more targeted approach in terms of it being live and about having some specific conversation that Dr. Lloyd brings to the table concerning directly health. We talk a lot about a lot of different aspects and things of health and society and politics and what have you, even a little bit of pop culture and music and things like that. But specifically, on my show, but specifically on Your Health in Mind, when we're doing that live, it's very directed toward the health, and more specifically, it's directed to answering your questions. You're able to chime in because it's a live show. It is a call-in show, and regardless of what Dr. Lloyd and I happen to be chatting about, whatever we're doing in the background, the show's about you. You call in with your health questions. Dr. Lloyd, the facilitator and healer that he is, empowers you with his knowledge and with the language and the tools, and you can go forward with your health concerns. It's great to listen to him do it each week, and we've helped people literally all around the globe at this point. And it's been very, very fun to do, and that's every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, live right here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. And I never ask you anything. I don't ask you to support the show. It's one of these things that is a problem for a lot of truth seekers, truth tellers, people in this so-called truth movement that's out there. It's a thing for them to be picked on, and Alex Jones has had it for years, where people talk about, oh, well, you're just hawking these supplements and these things and making a lot of money doing it. And regardless of what you think about many of the other aspects of what Alex Jones does in terms of his providing a thing that somebody voluntarily participates in terms of whatever it is, whether it's one of these health things or whatever, I don't find any fault with that. People must be good consumers, and seriously, if you listen to Alex Jones, if you listen to Alex Jones, you know that he's hyped up. He's a hype man, certainly for himself and his company and the political and religious views that he holds. And so he is in a hyped up space, and you have to take everything he says with a grain of salt, and that includes the things that he is offering through his storefronts and such. And he's not the only one. It happens to I see people all the time, small time, if you will, small broadcasters, people who try to monetize their whatever it is, if it's their writings or whether it's a broadcast or a podcast or whatever it is, a radio show. It doesn't. When they try to monetize it, people give them a hard time about it. And of course, the majority of those people are from an ignorant left. They're economically ignorant, and they live in their own little space and don't understand things. But there's a good share of people there that just sort of question whether or not what people offer, if they're not offering it for free, that there must not be any particular value to it. That what they're really doing is they're trying to sell something. And I don't care about what people think about that opinion necessarily. But I don't ask you to support me that way monetarily like that through a show or products or something like that, because I've found that I'm not interested in being tied to the people that support what it is that I'm doing necessarily. And by that I mean particularly I support it. I pay all the bills for all the website and for any minor bit of advertising or whatever it is. It's my time that's taken to compile all the information, to do the leaks, to do the links, to do all of the production and everything. It's all me. I do it all myself. I don't ask anybody else to be involved in it, and I keep it small and I keep it simple, and it goes out on my schedule. It goes out all the time, and I don't have to rely on somebody else to do that for me. And so I don't want to be beholden to somebody funding the show or who otherwise believes that they may have some input into what it is that I'm saying or what I'm doing from week to week because they have given me money. So I don't ask for it. Instead, I ask you to do what I would ask any business owner to do, and that's just to support me in my actual business. I own a comic book store in Topeka, Kansas. It's called Amazing Fantasies, and it is my business, and it is what I hope to be able to do for the rest of my life in terms of being able to make money as I grow it over, the next, I don't know, I'm thinking 5 years, and it will be really big at that time. It's already just a huge store in terms of the number of comics that are in it, that are accessible, that you can reasonably look through. There are stores with more comic books and more product, but it's unrealistic that unless you live right there, that you could go through it all in any amount of time. And the proof of that is the people that come back to the store all the time and constantly go through what is seemingly the same stuff, but it's not, because we're putting new stuff out every single day in the store. And so that's how I ask you to support me, whether it's through the weekly show that you hear or whether it's through one of these comic book reviews that I do, because that's one of the really fantastic things about it is your support of me is support of helping people read and helping people reach different understandings and different cultures and ideas through print media and through the visual media and through an entertaining media, but an informative media and a smart person's media, not a kid's media. That myth was busted a long time ago about comic books being for kids. Our kids section of comic books is really small, I assure you, and the number of kids comic books that are released every month is very small, I assure you, in comparison to everything else. I was able to read this week Superman #1, and I've never read that before, and I mean the Superman #1, not one of the many volume this, volume that Superman #1s. The original Superman #1 from 1939, or at least a reasonable facsimile thereof. And by reasonable, I say, of course, I grabbed the shiny one. I know that's sacrilege, but that's why I do it, because of the sacrilege. No, I like the pretty shiny one. I think they're great, especially if you light them properly, and because they're facsimiles, you don't have to worry about them sort of being exposed to light, for one thing, or damaging them. When you read them, you can pull them out of the package and you can read these things. And this book is huge, Superman #1. I've never read it before. Like I said, of course I know Superman, just like anybody else knows Superman, and then probably a little bit more than most people, just being connected to comic books like I am. But ultimately, I'm not a Superman fan. You know that if you listen to the show or if you caught one of these reviews. You know that I'm not a Superman fan. And it's not that I don't like him or I don't respect his world or anything. It's just that I've never found a connection. I've read various Superman stories throughout, and to be honest, now after reading this, that I actually have a little bit more connection to him, because he's a little bit less of this godlike character in these early presentations. And I didn't know that the Superman #1, that the 1939 version was just a collection of works of it's the first 4 issues of Action Comics, the Superman part of the first 4 issues of Action Comics with an expanded origin story in it. So I didn't know that, and so that was kind of neat. And of course, I've read the origin story. You have to read Action Comics #1, right? And the cool thing about that is that I'm not reading a Superman book. I'm reading Action Comics #1. That just happens to have this story about this kid from this planet and this, the whole thing. But then it has all these other fantastic characters and stories in it as well. And I love the anthology books. You hear me talk about them all the time. I still get Action Comics to this day. It's still on my pull. as well as Detective Comics. They're both on my poll because they are anthology books, and they treat them, generally speaking, like anthology books. Every once in a while, they slip off and they concentrate maybe too much on a character, but ultimately they're anthology books, and they introduce potential new characters and storylines and situations and things, I think, more often than you can reasonably do with a character book, a Superman book, because it's Superman. You expect it to be consistent for a period of time. It's one of the things comic books struggle with these days, is that consistency in the presentation, not to mention the whole short-term memory of people, the short attention span of people, and keeping their attention. And so they struggle with having to sort of recreate the characters along with the artists, and it's really always been the case, and that was kind of really made clear in reading Superman #1 here, because of the fact that it was so old and so different. And while I'd read the origin of Superman before, I'd never read the second, third, and fourth stories of Superman, and learned a little bit more about him. And the origin of Superman isn't as big in the original as it is in this. They'd had a year, I guess, of doing the Superman, the strips, and in Action Comics, and I don't know where all else, but so they were able to come up with this bigger collection like this. I didn't realize that that's exactly what it was, and so it was neat to be able to see how different of a character he really was compared to what he is today, where he's almost an invincible guy, or has been, and seems that way. It doesn't matter. They've killed him off. They bring him back. You generally can't go around killing off real people, right? You can do it to super soldiers. You can do it to superheroes from different planets. You can kill them off and bring them back to life. It's a little harder to do with real people. You have to make them radioactive or something like that. You have to give them some reason to be able to come, or they're the undead, or they ran into some god or something after death, and he gave them another chance. And that's a storyline. That's a thing. That's Asajj Ventress's storyline, right? That's what happens to her. She's dead, but sort of, it's not gods, but it's the witches, Mother Talzin, in the afterlife brings her back and gives her a reason, and just kind of obviously a trope within storytelling. But Superman #1, it's DC Comics, of course, and it's Jerome Siegel and Joe Shuster. That's how they present it. These are facsimiles, so these are exactly like, aside from my insistence on the pretty foil thing, it's basically exactly like the comic book, and, well, the price, a little bit different there. But that's relative too. It's a huge book, 64 pages, and it's a collection of that, the origin, and then the first 4 issues of Action Comics. And of course, the origin story is Krypton. It's doomed. His father puts him in the little baby rocket, and he rockets off and crashes to Earth. And then the Kents find him, and they raise him. Of course, actually, what they do is they find him and they turn him over to an orphanage, and eventually they come back and they adopt him. And they don't mention John's name in that origin story, but they do mention Mary's name, not Martha, Mary's name, and there's certain obvious things about him that are so much different today. There's not a huge focus on necessarily where the powers come from, the influence of sun. It's just that he's an alien. He's just not earthly. He can't fly. He can leap sort of 1/8 of a mile. They literally sort of just kind of say he can leap 1/8 of a mile. That's what he can do. He can jump through the air, and so he kind of just leaps and dives to where he's going. And he's not necessarily impervious. while you get a lot of the bouncing bullets and things like that coming off of him, they do mention something to the effect of a more powerful round actually being able to permeate his skin potentially. They don't show it, but they suggest it in the language that they use. He doesn't work for the Daily Planet. It's the Daily Star that he goes to as Clark Kent to try to find a job when he grows up, and he has to kind of sneak around, and it's kind of like the Spider-Man thing where he has to, J. Jonah Jameson will only pay Peter Parker money if he catches Spider-Man. He gets the Spider-Man story. Well, that's what the I didn't even catch the guy's name. The editor of the Daily Star tells Clark to do. Well, that's what Clark decides he has to do to be able to get the job, because ultimately they just overlook him. And so he's more of a sort of a reporter / investigator kind of, and that's consistent with superheroes coming out of the previous types of stories, the detective stories, the occult stories, things like that led up to the superheroes and their catching on. So it makes sense that he's more of an investigator, more of an investigative reporter than he is a sort of a hero necessarily, and he's almost in a sense doing the superhero stuff to get the job and to be the reporter and to be able to keep the job. But that's short-lived. He quickly becomes about justice and law and order, and you kind of, as an anarchist, I see that he's kind of indoctrinated with this idea that only the state provides justice. But it's weird because a lot of the things that he does is sort of stopping the state and people who would support the state, the people out there cheering him on, yeah, go ahead and execute him thing. He kind of gets in between those people. And so it makes a much more interesting character than maybe the necessarily strict, just shy of, I can't even use the word, authoritarian. He a very scary authoritarian, the type of which is pictured in it's the Zack Snyder Justice League, right, where they finally show that Superman supports an authoritarian regime in the world, and Batman is against it. And sorry, I don't know the whole storyline. I just know what they introduced there, and I've seen mention of it and things about it before, but I don't know the actual storyline, the Justice League storyline that all ties into all of that. But he does eventually become all about justice and law and order for what it's worth. But he's not above sort of enacting really real justice. I talk about real justice all the time, what real justice is, and there's actually a really good example of it on the show today at towardanarchy.com. But you would have to go there. You'd have to pull out of this. We'll get back to that here in a minute. There's actually a really good link though there about real justice, and Superman is not above exacting real justice and sort of beating the snot out of somebody who beat their wife, or he's clearly, he believes that just, here, this is what you did to that woman. Let's show you what it's like to have somebody stronger than you slap you around a little bit. No, go ahead, throw your punches. And they don't go into it necessarily. It's not like today where you just see him leaving a bloody pulp and mess. You get the hint you get the little crosshatch drawing type of bruises on him and the torn clothing and that thing. And so that Superman packed a lunch and homeboy didn't. Superman was ready to be there all day, and this guy wasn't. And it's neat to see him do that. What's not cool is him simping for Lois and hiding his masculinity, his powers. He doesn't seem to understand that there would be a middle ground in any of these situations where he has to act like a man. He takes Lois out on a date. He finally gets her to go out on a date with him, and they're accosted by some ruffians in the club, and he just simps. He wimps off, and there's obviously it's about him, hiding his identity, and we get all that, and it's for the story and everything. But the truth is, the more realistic superhero would, he'd be that person that would find that space in between. You wouldn't just go the complete opposite direction of it. I don't think you could. It would be against your nature to allow people, especially he's talking about justice and standing up for justice and acting justice really truthfully on the spot, and that the best way to do that, obviously, is on the spot. Yeah, I'm going to hand you over to the authorities, and you'll pay for what you did to this person in those terms of society's expectations. But smack, smack, smack. Here you go. Here's a little bit of what here's a little bit of medicine for you, and the stories are a little bit interesting because there was. Lots of sort of early political statements and really early political statements, because it's very clear that there's this one point where there's a backroom deal with some politicians, and they're trying to drag the U.S. into the war at the time. This is 1939. And so they're talking about Second World War, and they're trying to drag the U.S. into the war, and it's a military industrial complex. It's the whole conspiracy, right? It's these guys, these gods of war type people, musicians and arms dealers, that sort of thing, doing backroom deals with politicians to drag us into war. I just as an adult, I found the comic book to be a lot more in tune with who I am as a person of 52 years of age. The Superman character to be a lot more in tune to who I am, a throwback, I guess, maybe, to a time where there was a such thing as honor, where men carried themselves honorably. That's what I'm saying. And where you didn't let somebody assault you and hurt the people that you love, that you did something about it on the spot, that you didn't rely on the state to get some sense of justice, that you did what you could at the time, and that people were ultimately empowered about themselves and about protecting themselves. It's really, truly a neat thing, and I really enjoyed being able to read it and to be able to tell you about it. Support me by going to AmazingFantasies.com. If you can't get your hands on one of these, obviously you can jump up there on the internet and you can get one all day long, but I would be happy to help you out if you don't have a local comic shop in your area, and there are plenty of people who don't. There are less than 2,000 comic book shops in America. And so I get it. If you don't have one, reach out to me at AmazingFantasies.com. We will be glad to set you up on a pull list and mail stuff out to you. If you're here in the contiguous, for sure, it would be almost no problem whatsoever with just logistics, just make the thing happen. We'd be glad to do that for you. Otherwise, if you're ever in Topeka, Kansas, stop in the store sometime. That would be fantastic to see you. So go back to towardanarchy.com. And there's plenty to talk about. I shared some links with you, of course, under the Anarchist audit there. And there's so much. There's so much. I'm not even going to be able to get into the family things and stuff. They took me away, and that's why I said they're still open. And so there's all that. There's all life and the business and the wonder of all that on top of everything. And then there's all this political and economic turmoil, and it's just not particularly getting better, even though the people that are in the positions of power and positions of authority would tell you, generally speaking, that they are getting better. And if they tell you that they're not, you have to question whether or not they're actually being truthful about that statement, or whether or not they're making some sort of political statement because it's just political opposition. So, towardanarchy.com, episode 2526, we'll bring Dr. Lloyd in here in just a few minutes. All the links are up there to these fantastic, wonderful, whatever. They're they just are what they are, and I'm recording a little bit earlier than I normally do in the week. I try to wait until the very last minute almost, oftentimes even recording on Saturday, just earlier in the day. But with the family things going on, I'm jumping into it a little bit earlier. So there's a couple of things that are actually happening sort of almost real time as I'm talking about them. And that's that, knowing that Trump isn't one to miss the opportunity that is crisis, right? He and his cronies there, they dug real deep to come up with this excuse, this old law or whatever, this old emergency that they can enact to ultimately pass all of these different tariffs on the economy. It's this economic emergency thing. There are states and businessmen, there are people that have been trying to sue him, and I guess it's in front of the appeals process at this point, and they were hearing it literally today, and there's a link there for the latest, and I didn't know a lot about it. Why would I? Seriously, why would I? I know that the guy is not good for the economy. I know that tariffs are not good for the economy. I know that bully politics, even if you manage to accomplish something, that's not me. I'm the anarchist, right? It's about voluntary association, and I absolutely know for a fact that you can do this on the state level as well. Maybe not too big of a state level, and that's part of the problem here. But having no delusions that Trump is going to be able to do what he's doing with tariffs and make things better. And now the appeals court, they're asking, let's see, a small group of businesses in coalition with the states are asking the appeals court to invalidate the bulk of Trump's tariffs, arguing that that Trump overstepped his power when he invoked the rarely used International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Yeah, I'm supposed to remember that, please. I don't have space in my brain for that. And then of course, he went hog wild on the pen, as I've told you about from day one. And so the appeals court, they're looking at it. It should be obvious to anyone that no individual person, I don't care what they call it or who that particular person is, should have that much control over the economy, that they can just write a pen and that they can change international business. There's more links up here at towardanarchy.com that I have for you that sort of back up this assertion that no one person should be able to do this. And it's because of the fact that the consumer spending was up, but so are the inflation markers. So the inflation that he's promised is going to be fixed is not going to be fixed. And of course it's not, because he increased the budget. They want, trillions and trillions of dollars more. They're not reducing government. They're shifting government around, something I've been telling you about for a year now, about what they plan to do in terms of shifting government, and that it wasn't going to change the size or scope of government, that it was just going to shift it toward a more political right-wing sort of power base, and that's what they talked about in that Project 2025 or whatever it was that everybody was talking about last year. I did my due diligence. I covered the thing. You don't expect, I'm not going to remember. I'd rather remember Superman and 1939, except I can't ever remember those either, because Superman's the easy one. Action Comics 1938, Superman 1939. It's the Batman that I don't remember. I know he didn't come out at the exact same time, but it's just a little bit later, and then because he came out in Detective Comics, but then there was a Batman, it was about like 1939 or 1940, something like that, a Batman #1, and I don't remember it all, and it's not that important. What's important is the feeling that you get when you hold the book in your hand and you read it and you find it out, and you're entertained, and you've solved the mystery of Superman. So consumer spending was up, and the inflation markers are as well, so he's not doing anything to fix the economy, even though he continues to manipulate it. And people ask how that happens. And without going into detail and without trying to argue why I can tell you this and I don't have an economic degree. The long and short of it is that you would probably see a decrease in the total volume of sales, but an actual rise in the cost of those goods. So you compare, so consumer spending was up, those numbers were up, the total dollars of consumer spending are up, but the cost of those things went up at the same time, and they went up pretty big at the same time because the economy is scared, is a little bit in fluctuation, if you will, because of the things that Trump is doing to it. Like I said, there's a little bit of proof there that you can look at, and I pulled up a second opinion as well. The first link was MSN through CNN through MSN. And U.S. consumers continued to spend in June, powering the economy in the process, despite tariff-related price hikes becoming more present on store shelves and online. So they just say consumer spending rose 0.3%. Who knows? Maybe it was. It could have been relatively flat because, frankly, that's well within an error. Within any kind of error, and it's within political error. They use it all the time. Inflation adjusted ticked up 0.1%. So who knows? Again, I showed you just recently, a couple of weeks ago, the difference in two stories, the exact same time, talking about the exact same numbers, but completely suggesting that the numbers were different and meant something different, but they were talking about the exact same things. It was mainstream media, and it was just a political view. That was the only thing. So you have to come to somebody like me for an honest opinion on these things when it comes to why do you think that I could comment on something like that and when I don't have a degree in economics? Common sense. If you see something happening right there and you understand how money flows and you understand that even with the political component inside our economic presentations, the things that they bring to us about the economy, that there's some effort made to find some places and some things within the economy to provide information that is unlike it would be in any other space in the economy, that gives you an outlook onto what things are. And of course these things come in simple packages, really. They make sense. It's going to be the things that people have to have versus the things that people want, and it's going to be an amount of discretionary spending that is different in people who have less money than people who have more money. So when they're talking about the economy is a certain way, well, the economy is only a certain way for the people who are involved in the economy necessarily. All the rest of us, our economy is relative to us and what we do and what we can produce. Obviously, it's influenced by the things around us, but what I'm getting at is that people that have a whole bunch of money don't necessarily have to think or look at the economy as being bad because they're not struggling necessarily to generate more wealth, because in a lot of cases their money isn't in a space where they expect maybe necessarily great wealth adjustments, because they're in long-term investments that provide stable investment opportunities. So their income is a little more stable than the poorer person, the normal, the average person, the person like myself who, I have a small business and I rely on that business doing well for me to do well in my own life. The farmer and the manufacturer can no more live without profit than the laborer without wages. The man was right. Let's see. There's some more links up there. A dumb moment. Yeah, I like these. These are really fun. These dumb moments in history where science catches up with, or politics, or religion, or society catches up with something that's obvious to other people and obvious to certain groups of people and has been for a very, very long time. Because science is only just now finding out what sort of moms and village healers have known for like a million years. It's tongue-in-cheek to say so, but for a very, very long time we've understood the answer to the question, why don't the Amish in this case develop allergies than the greater population. There are a number of reasons for it, but one of the biggest reasons is that their pregnant women and their young children tend to participate in the rest of life all the way up to and through the birth, and they're young, they're out there right away. They don't just take a baby and throw it out into the barn, but as soon as the children are able, and mother, as soon as she is able, baby is on the hip, baby's there, baby is present wherever, while mom goes about doing the things that have to be done to maintain their life. They don't have necessarily, some of them do have stores and things and businesses and things that they produce stuff, but many of them are self-sufficient, and they're providing for themselves and they're providing for their community. And these people could have told you, like any mother could have told you a long time ago, that the sooner and the longer and you expose people to the environment around them, and I mean in particular the natural environment around them, the more they adapt to it and the better they are at it. And barring a sort of physical defect, something wrong with them where they have sort of allergy problems, it's going to build up their immune system. And even where they do have the allergy problems, the slow introduction of it, even later in life, can help. That's why raw local honey is really good, because those irritants, those pollens, those things that tend to float around in the air, the dust and things like that, they all are in and around that raw, natural honey, and the process of creating that honey in your local environment. And so somebody who sort of gets hay fever during that time of season, they can potentially, far be it for me to give medical advice or economic advice or political advice or fatherly advice or anything else that I'm successful at, because I don't have a job, but a job in one of those fields. I run a comic book shop. I can't talk about those things. That the slow introduction of raw natural honey to somebody who has allergies is one way that they can cope with, that they can build up a resistance to the things that are causing them allergies, especially in places where they live, where it's a regular seasonal thing. It can it's an amazing thing that people, and it falls right in line with why don't the Amish develop allergies? Well, science is just figuring out that it's because they're close to the earth, and that they're there early in life and all throughout life, and generally speaking, and that's the same with a lot of disease and vaccines and other questions that come up around these communities like this who don't live in our modern society. And some of it is that literal environment, the toxic environment of the cities. They don't live in those environments, and that helps in general. But a lot of it is that they don't do a ton of invasive sort of medical things, and they don't fear nature. They embrace nature, and that's something that we as a society don't necessarily do so much anymore. Yeah, I mentioned earlier about the justice thing. It came up a couple of times. It came up there with Superman, obviously. There's this fantastic link up there, whatever, for what it's worth. Just talking about maybe there's a video, I don't know, I didn't go look, I'm not some sort of weirdo or something, I don't need that kind of fix. That's not what I'm talking about when I say things that like justice is found in the moment. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say that justice is found in the moment. When someone drives through a crowd, this happened here a week or so ago, it was a little bit ago, I had this link, and why do I keep saying leak? I had this link, and I had not shared it yet, but I managed to remember to grab it and point it out because of the conversation about justice. This is how justice is served. This person drives through this crowd on purpose. The crowd, they drag him out of the car, and they take care of business. They beat the snot out of this dude. They even shot his ass before the cops got there. That, my friends, is justice. It's an extreme example, mind you, of justice, but it is, in fact, justice. And then there's this thing that just should be a little bit of fun for you. It's toxic traits that the next generation hopes that us older guys, that they'll die off. Commuting is one of them. Slamming people for setting boundaries. That's silly. Nobody does that. Only weirdos do that. That's not a normal societal thing. That's just certain people who have no sense of who other people are, and they have a lack of empathy for other people, lack of forgiveness. Again, that's a people thing. That's not a societal thing. Anti-intellectualism, that's a societal thing that's not going to go away, because anti-intellectualism will always exist for a number of reasons. The state doesn't like it, but all the people in the state pretend to be intellectual and smart, and they're not. They're obviously just welfare whores. There's more. The links are there, towardanarchy.com. I need to bring Dr. Dean Lloyd in here and have a conversation with him, so stick around. We will be right back here on Toward Anarchy.
Why is there such a big fence, Dad?
Well, millions of people come to America in search of a better life, and we've decided we don't need that many.
Did the super nuisance phones come through the fence?
No, Bobby. Con applied the legal way. Sometimes the system fails us.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
And here we go, off into hour number 2, and wherever you are finding the show at, this is the key right now. This is the only thing that should be on your mind, is to remember to click that like button, and do it now. Don't forget to do it. I'm counting on you, the power of the like button. Towardanarchy.com to follow along, and at Toward Anarchy everywhere else on the internet. Go to towardanarchy.com and look for 2526, if I remember correctly. Boy, I'm so displaced. There's so much going on right now. But I think I'm all in order. It's kind of weird sitting down here again. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been here, but it really hasn't been that long ago. And it just feels like it. There's so much going on in the meantime, I guess, that makes it feel that way. Towardanarchy.com, look for 2526. That's the episode. And when you get there, you will find that my guest is Dr. Dean Lloyd. Surprise, surprise, right? It's not like we've ever had him around here before. We love talking with Dr. Lloyd. Actually, we would have had that conversation last week if it wasn't for life and some of those things that have been taking me away and making me feel displaced. We would have had the conversation last week, but we bumped it, and we bumped everybody. We just kicked everybody down a week and said, reset. And, it'll work. It'll be fine. I'm sure I'll jump right back into my groove and start feeling it again. That's how it works. And it's always easy thing to do when you're talking to Dr. Lloyd. That's kind of cool. And one of the other, there's so much going on. So newish microphone. It's only been used a few times for the show. And also then new background. I'm working on new background there, and hanging some real and some facsimile comics. I wonder if you can guess which one is real and which one's a facsimile. And any guess there, Dr. Lloyd?
They look pretty close to the same to me.
Yeah, well, this one is real because that one's only from 1977 and is only worth about $200. That one right there is Detective Comics number 27 from 1940 or whatever it was. First appearance of Batman. And if that were real, that would be, I don't know, $3-5 million, something like that. It just depend on what auction you got it in, what audience and what condition it was in. But ultimately, yeah, it'd be a few $1 million pretty easily at this point in history. So yeah, so there'll be some real ones and some not real ones up there. And once I get it all filled in, I'm having some fun doing that. Dr. Lloyd, how are you, man? What have you been up to?
I've been fantastic. I've got even another project at a Hot Springs I've added to my already busy schedule with 2 bands and my clinic, and somewhere in there taking care of myself. And it's a very busy time, but I'm enjoying life. A lot of people, when they come to me, are mired down by their life circumstances. And one of the ways that I've had to learn over the years is to manage my output of energy, right? And that takes some skill. I mean, it's about being distracted. We have so many distractions, right, in our life. And over the years, I've learned the more I give, the easier it is for me to give. But I have to be a skillful giver. And meaning that I've had to learn the art of skillful giving and not getting hurt. And that was our topic last month, which I think is very timely. You can probably share a little bit of your experience recently because of your needing to give to your family under your circumstances, if you'd like.
Well, it's funny because I always have that sort of thing in mind. I have an endless well of energy. I don't lack energy, and I can I put the right amount of energy into what needs done. I don't know. It's I'm not in ill health or anything like that. I don't have any long-term, no major injuries or illnesses, knock on wood, throughout my life. And I've taken pretty good care of myself. So I don't have a sort of biological energy problem, and just maintaining a sort of healthy view of myself in terms of reality and the scope of the universe, keeping that healthy view of myself within that. I stay humble and I stay energetic and put to what needs to be done the amount of energy I'm willing to give it.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's energy following your consciousness. And consciousness.
Yeah, right. It's a conscious effort to put that energy in it. And it's weird because a lot of people around me will see me and will question why I will do things the way I do. And there's no reason to ultimately in the end, because I've never not once accomplished anything. I've never not once done the thing. If it needed to be done, I may have taken my time. I may have done it my way. And made it real clear that I wasn't in necessarily any hurry, or I wasn't looking for any particular direction or tools to do the job, that I would just do the job when I was ready to do the job, and that it needed to be done. And so it still amazes me. I'm the guy that everybody goes to in the family. I'm the rock of the family. And, every once in a while I ask myself, who does the rock turn to? But I have that healthy understanding of who I am and myself. And I just won't give up me for all that other stuff, no matter how important it is. And so my mental and physical health and position in things has to come first, because it doesn't matter, if I'm not in as best a shape as I can be, and how am I able to tackle any other problem or help anyone else? So I keep a perspective about that suggests to myself anyway, that I'm prepared and as prepared mentally, anyway, as I possibly can be to tackle any challenge,
That's perfect segue into this, because I can only, and you, I can only help myself as much, to help somebody else. I can only help someone else as much as I've helped myself first.
Right.
Yeah, and you're pointing out that when we're giving out energy, and you haven't had a problem with energy, but boy, there are a lot of people with energy problems right now.
No, I'm lucky that way, but it's not luck too either. It's a little bit of concerted effort, not so much. I just realized that there are a couple of health things that are pretty clear. One is don't be overweight, and the other is to stay mobile. And basically, if you keep those two in mind, it seems to me that's been my approach to it. I'm carrying a little bit more weight right now because it's just a couple of pounds in the gut, just because I've been more stationary than I have been. But over the last few years, transitioning, running away from the comic book shop and everything that was going on there. And then now just recently turning around and taking charge of that all again. And so I'm back on my feet, and I expect all that. A couple little extra pounds will go away. And
that's a thing where we realize where our energy drains are coming from, right? And when we say the body wants to move, like you're exercising, you're more sedentary, you're not getting the energy burning, the way that you want in balance. Well, that's part of our job. It's a lifelong process. The older we get, each year has something to offer us. And to manage that output, that means also being able to understand your way of giving to others, and the skillful way of doing that is a matter of your understanding how your perception changes with your circumstances. Okay. And to that point, I was going to launch off into a story. I have a story for you, Michael.
I like stories.
Yeah, this is of two farmers. Okay. And farmers Brown and Green. And it goes like this. And I'm reading from Cruising the Epiphany Highway, which is the book I like to oftentimes refer to, that covers topics that are about the evolutionary process. And my website, if you don't know already, is called Cruising the Epiphany Highway, and that book is available on ebook at that website. And I'm reading from page 55, and it's Farmers Brown and Green. Like most people, they've been busy trying to avoid the frustrations that have accumulated in their life. Within their psyches, just barely held at bay, there are years of their own inner uncertainties, hopes and fears, successes and failures, rights and wrongs, slush around in a swamp of avoided, self-recriminating guilt and shame. Suddenly, in an unguarded moment of unintentional introspection, those two men begin to question the meaning of their existence. Agitated beyond restraint, their dam of habitual conduct bursts. They find themselves doing something so unusual to their normally confined sensibilities that they feel like they have become new persons. By changing their stimulus-response ratio, they discovered that their alter egos and were suddenly able to engage in a whole new range of experience. They are no longer constrained by their former mode of processing. Now, just briefly, I'm going to pause. We talked about the stimulus-response ratio. I talked about the table last month. And for those that want to go back and listen to that program, it'll give you some foundation of that particular topic of the stimulus response that we're talking about now. Okay? Continuing. By whatever means you alter your stimulus-response ratio, be it drugs, hypnosis, spiritual techniques, multiple orgasms, stunning achievement, etc., you discover in your elation a way of responding that is far more rewarding than you usually allow yourself to feel. You become like a child's soul, screaming in the dark for comfort, saying, I'll eat this way, I'll talk this way, I'll think this way, I'll live this way. I will or will not have sex this way. I do most anything if I have to. Go back to being that self-tormented, miserably inadequate slob. As such, you will inevitably attract whatever psychological compensation fits your level of development. From shamanism through formal religion into transactional analysis, rounding EST and Scientology, heading into psychedelic euphoria of evolutionary media conceits. There's a particular way of offering your own energy. There's a pacifier for everyone. The adult soul, on the other hand, is not trying to get away from inner torment. The adult soul already feels integrated in a continuously readjusting balance to the interactive dynamics of circumstances. The adult soul wants to know how effectively the boundaries of experience can be extended. The child soul, entrapped in fear, is going, no, I'll be good. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't let it hurt me anymore. While the adult soul is saying, this feels great. Let's up the ante. Let's open things up even more. One is saying no, trying to desperately to get away from the pain. The other is saying yes, seeking to expand into more pleasure. Again, it becomes to you coming around to that state of mind. Certainly, it can be fun and psychologically profitable to be able to safely and effectively alter your perception. It's a part of your human birthright. However, if you're altering your consciousness to get away from the self-persecuting torment of your intellect lost in torturing itself, it won't work because you haven't really changed anything. You've just found a technique which lets you bypass the problem temporarily. Thereby, you may become desperately dependent upon the consciousness altering technique, the drug, the mantra, and or orgasm control you. But if you let go of the technique, all the unresolved conflicts reassert themselves. Your old persona returns. To prevent that, you must readapt your lifestyle around the mind-altering technique, discarding valuable parts of your relation to your past. You seek out those similar dispositions for mutual confirmation. Your former persona, along with anyone else who may still remind you of it, becomes the scapegoat for the error of your ways. You've become self-righteous, and you will make holy war on anyone who threatens your rationalized salvation. So, the addictive need to lose your mind and come to your senses through stimulation and distraction doesn't resolve the duality trap of the intellect. The denying of your feelings and emotions by restricting yourself to tunnel vision doesn't resolve the duality trap of the intellect. Finding a controlling technique by which you can alter the stimulus-response ratio and transcend your normal view of yourself doesn't resolve the duality trap of the intellect. Then, what will it take to liberate you from the delusional constraints of your self-image. Asking the question means that you've begun to recognize the trap, a trap that you cannot get out of until you realize that you're already in one. Now, I have a little, there's a lot there, okay? A lot there. I have an athlete, a patient. I've had many over the years that have come to me wanting to increase their stamina, their ability to recover. They want to get more enjoyment out of their running or their biking. A lot of bikers around here, by the way. There's a lot of people that bike through because of the long distances, and it's a challenging bike ride, but there's a lot of them. Anyway, the athlete will oftentimes become addicted to being an athlete. Now, what do I mean by that? It's thank you for asking. I see.
Sorry. I'm just nodding in case anybody's listening. I'm just nodding along. I'm right there with him.
Well, I found over time that that's just one. I'm not accusing athletes of doing this. I've seen a pattern.
No, it happens.
Yeah,
that's why I was just nodding. I said, I completely understand it. Yeah, it's something that people often do. They'll trade one addiction for another, and oftentimes people who have chemical addictions will turn to exercise, and it becomes the new addiction.
Right, and we seem to, because it's the word addiction is so ubiquitous in our culture, acceptable. It becomes a kind of, adapting to your own insecurities, your own hang-ups, your own mental disabilities. In other words, this trading of addictions, I like to first find out what is it that's causing the block of energy, right? Because it's emotional pain, who I'm going to be talking about now. Because when we're giving out the energy to people, that we hope for a kind of, at least I would expect this for myself, a kind of exchange that would be making both of us better, right? I mean, we're not trying to one-up the other person. I mean, one-upsmanship is the way of winning, It's the game that we play. Like, it has to be, you gotta win, to be successful in life. Well, if you have that attitude, then you're not looking at it from an inner accomplishment place, your inner victory. Win or lose, the game is about the game, right? The game of life. And when we're talking about the athlete who's, getting more out of their running or the, recovery time and, trying to make themselves feel better, they're looking at that euphoric state that you get in when you're in that high energy level. I'm a swimmer, so I love the feeling of getting to my mile and wanting to go longer, and it feels great. You get endorphins are releasing,
even just a little bit further. Oh man, just that much further I went. That's amazing.
And that's a spiritual thing. On the other end of it, though, people that will do athletics that try to bypass their inner discord, their inability to work out the obscure and unresolved emotions. They try to run it. They burn themselves up. I've found most of the time they're so emotionally charged negatively. They can overdo the workouts. They can become they overcompensate, right? And that goes for eating too. I mean, that's a kind of disorder, is it not? I mean, addicted to food, and you mentioned drugs, very common nowadays because they're so, they're also ubiquitous. I mean, the kinds of drugs that are out there recreationally, and they're looking at it. This is some pathway of getting past those emotional blocks, those constraints. And this story about the farmers, is when they make a breakthrough, that they have this perception shift that may only take a slight adjustment from what they're doing already, but saying to themselves, what is it that's making me uncomfortable? What is it that's causing my perception of this situation to feel so draining to me, not productive? And so it's a constant evaluation of your output. And that's what I was referring to in the first part of this, is that when we're giving, skillful giving, it's so beautiful to be spontaneous, is it not? I mean, when you're in that place where you don't have to read from a script, just how to act. I was mentioning before, eat this way, talk this way, kneel this way, pray this way, all these particular, methods, that we adopt in our life that are ritualistic. A lot of them, we play this game with ourselves of saying that it has to look just so. But when you let yourself go from that, and your anarchy topic is one that scares people, because when you say that means like, oh no, we're going to lose control, and it's really our inner control that manages, and you can navigate what's needed by taking in what kind of information the outer circumstances are without getting sucked in by all of the the hang-ups that people are having, and all the the dogmas and so on. It's easy for those people that bought into their own trip to have absolutely no other view of how a situation can be. And when you let go and say, okay, is this what about the word anarchy is making me uncomfortable? Because that would be the first question I'd ask. If it did make me uncomfortable, I would say, why? Why is that such a problematic thing? And I'm bringing that up because it's your specialty, right? My wanting to take this topic and bring it in a pragmatic way or cohesive way is the same thing I've been saying all along, is that whenever you're feeling doubt, fear, confusion, anxiety, guilt, shame, anything negative, it means you don't understand. And when you're coming to that realization, then you're saying, okay, I've got control of how I feel. I'm open to life and its new experiences and what it can show me. And I understand when someone says to me, I want to do this because I want to see where it takes me. Okay, go ahead. Maybe bungee jumping's your thing. Or maybe, that long line, what is it called?
Zip line?
Zip line, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, zip lining. Or, I'm exploring.
We all know the truth about zip lining. It sucks.
I've never tried it.
Ask South. You got to watch. There's an episode of South Park specifically about them going zip lining, and the whole thing's a nightmare.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So anyway, I know I've shared a lot here. I'd like your comments on it, but what I'm talking about is being open to your experience and not being locked in, because the giving process, once you get to that place, and I mentioned earlier that the more I do this, the easier it is for me to give, right? Because I'm not locked into a particular mindset. I'm open to other things, but I will say I do know what I know, and I'm not going to go dummy up for anybody who's trying to, give me their trip that doesn't match my standards, and I've reached a place where I can be at that level of honesty to say, that's not going to work for me, or I want to try this because it looks like it'll work better.
I think most people don't. There's a couple of things going on there. Obviously, there's a lot that you've talked about there, but just a couple of things that I noted about, and it's just all rooted in fear. It really is. there's uncertainty and fear of change. And so a lot of people are just afraid to even make the most simple changes, to do just the basics, to make that change, because they really don't know what it's going to do to them in the future. They're afraid of it. And I think we just have so many people afraid of just their own shadow. And so you have another layer on top of trying to get to understanding. And it's not just a lack of understanding. It's a fear of understanding. It's a fear of knowing more. It's the same thing, probably. I don't have any doubt, really, that it's the same thing that keeps the average man from just going to the doctor and getting a checkup. And you know how they say, I'd rather not know. And we're all prone to that, I think, because we are. I think that the people who are really truly aware of themselves and their place in the universe realize how small it is, but they also at the same time realize that everyone else around them is also that small as well. And so that we're all kind of, we have an innate understanding, whether we nurture it in ourselves or not, that we're all just these tiny little specks of dust in a vast universe that is mostly unfriendly to our existence. We have a natural, innate understanding of that, whether we nurture that ourselves or not. And so, and that'll lead us to do a lot of weird things. It'll lead us to taking unnecessary risks. But it'll also do the exact opposite. Like I was saying, it'll keep you from taking that step as well, you know? And so we're such a weird thing existing in the universe. Our consciousness about ourselves is so unique. And our consciousness about ourselves as individuals from one to another is so unique and can be so much more defined in one individual than the next. And so you could talk about it endlessly and never come to an answer or a conclusion, other than all you can do is keep moving, keep being aware, you know, just like I was talking about the physical things earlier as you age, just to keep moving and to not get stagnant. It's the same with the brain. It's the same with the understanding of ourselves physically, and it's the same of our understanding of ourselves in our place in the universe. And all of it is, the sooner you can catch that wisdom, the better off you are, because you're going to have a much better shot at a long, not necessarily a longer life, because there's so many things that determine that, but a more healthier, enjoyable life that you do have. That's my philosophy about the whole thing.
Yeah, well, therein lies the ability to change, right? You know, change is immediate. And just to circle back to your point about how men don't like to go to doctors as much, there was someone that I knew that he's not a patient, but he started losing weight at a very fast rate. And he didn't want to know what was wrong with him. He decided, well, you know, I should be eating more ice cream, and I should be having more protein shakes. And so he did. And that was almost his whole diet, was protein shakes and ice cream and high calorie foods. That was his thinking, right? Because I'm losing weight. That must mean I must need to take in the amount of calories. That was his mindset. Now he kept losing weight and he kept looking worse. Now he did this for, I think, 8 months, and he just kept losing weight. And finally, he went to get diagnosed, and turns out he has type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm. That would have been my guess.
Yeah, type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
And he would not get diagnosed. He was so convinced that he was just going to add calories. His pancreas was dying.
Yeah.
And that he took him that long to get his mind in a place where he could go see a doctor to see what's wrong with him.
That's pretty quick. That's probably pretty quick for most men. he might be well ahead of the curve.
Well, I don't know statistically, but
I don't either. But I'm thinking 5-10 years for most.
If it was me, of course, I would have responded to it a lot differently. I would have investigated. If I would say I wasn't a doctor,
Right? You do some investigation, and when you can't find out for yourself, you can't answer the questions yourself. You go ask somebody else who should know better.
that's the most important thing in healing is asking for help.
Right.
In the right places, of course. But that's part of our job, is to make sense of all the misdirection and misinformation out there, because it's so, it's so deeply in our mind. Like this man who thought of his condition, losing weight, oh, it's just a simple matter of me needing to take in more calories.
That's a very simple minded approach to something. That's not how physiology works. You don't just start drastically losing weight when you haven't necessarily changed your diet, and so increasing the amount of food you intake isn't going. It's just that simple thinking. That's somebody who needs to recognize their limitations and understanding what they know and don't know, and needs to turn and ask somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So this is our level of catching ourselves going in a direction where it's not serving us, right? I mean, how many times have you been in relationships? And I'm going to kind of, explore a little bit of your history, because you mentioned it on the radio before, but your relationship with your previous partner in your bookstore. Mm-hmm. How it did not work out for you because it wasn't complementary. It was about a battle, power struggle, and those kinds of things, when they're not serving you, although they're familiar, they may be familiar. Changing the direction or the path. I just recently had someone I had just a fabulous conversation with. Great information, and it went on for over an hour, and it was really great that the connection was made. But I realized at the end of the call that he was going in a different direction. We had all the simpatico of how things were working, what to do next about it, mechanics in vehicles, history about medicine. I mean, all these different topics were covered, but at the end of the conversation, I realized that, oh my gosh, he's going in a different direction. I like the guy, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't look like we're simpatico in sharing the information that I'm all about and what I want to provide. And these are, it's really funny when you're in the medical field, you get a lot of people who are perceived as being high educated, very, high intellect, very, aware of what the circumstances are, but you might be able to study, and you may be good at that, and you may be able to take your tests, but the field, it's not what I would say an area that, just like with attorneys, lawyers, they got to have a lot of training for that, a lot of, but because they have an intellect does not mean that they're intelligent. In other words, they've developed understanding of vocabulary, that which we understand in the form of symbols.
Oh yeah, no, they can hold a certain conversation, and they can hold it on great levels inside that conversation. Take them outside that conversation, and you quickly realize how not so smart they really truly are. Bill Maher is a perfect example of that, not to keep picking on the guy, but he truly is a perfect example of that. I've watched him off and on over the years, and I've watched him, more recently in in positions where he doesn't have the protection, the armor of writers and time to think about things, and his inability to adjust in the conversation, and his inability to answer certain questions, and the way he thinks are exposed in that, because he's not covered up by that armor, that shield of writers and time that allow him to sort of perfect or change a mood or an idea to get a certain response out of it. And you can just tell he's just one of those people that he's a perfect example of that he appears to be really smart inside of his elephant, inside of his element, and and once you take him outside of that element, even just to the side, really right adjacent to the element, his lack of intelligence is really exposed.
Yeah, and it's that one myopic lane that he's used to, reading from a script and having, these different points that he's able to, address with competency, and then you take him outside another thought process. It was exactly like I was talking before. I could phrase it another way. It's that most people are in their box -1. Yeah.
Well, here's another one that you'll like. This is a good one. It's the difference between someone who can play an instrument and someone who can play jazz.
Yeah, that's improvisation.
Yeah.
I can do both. I read music, and I also improvisation is part of it.
But there's a big gap. There's a huge gap there. Most of your musicians are going to shy away from the improvisation. They're going to want to have the notes and everything laid out before them. And I can speak to this as a musician, and I can speak to it as somebody who's watched other musicians over the years, from in being in jazz band to being in marching band to being in rock and roll bands, and the various types of bands, and being an observer of people who play instruments and perform. It's very clearly along that same mindset, and that's it comes with practice, but it begins with not being afraid to do it. It begins with the first time somebody says to you, well, start with this note and go from there, and just play, make it sound good. You know what sounds good on the instrument. You've been playing it for a few years. Do it, and not saying, well, yeah, I can't do that. I have to do this thing over here first before I can do that. And it's just as simple as that. Just taking that little leap of faith.
Yeah, there's a song by Paul Simon, Late in the Evening, and he says, when I'm going to pull it up here. It says, went outside to smoke myself a J. I walked back in the room and began to play. Okay. In other words, the perception changed for him. And just a little bit of that. And cannabis, I have a lot of respect for. It's a psychoactive, adaptogenic herb. And it's been just used it's been abused, unfortunately. You can abuse anything. But that the cannabis is not a drug in my book.
No, it's a chemical reaction in your brain, and
that are in there that are causing the change in your body's chemistry that allows this kind of normalizing effect to take place.
That's absolutely it. And we've known this for a really long time. So it's one of these things that drives conspiracy around cannabis, but there's no conspiracy around it. We know that obviously it would replace a lot of papers and textiles and things like that when it's used and farmed properly. But that whole notion of the drug itself and its effect on the individual, and it making the individual more adaptive to the environment, and that's what everybody thought up until like the 80s, mid 80s or something like that, mid to late 80s, and then that's when they discovered that our brain actually synthesizes the endocannabinoids. We have a system within us that synthesizes basically the same thing that the cannabis plant does when we smoke it. And that what we find, if you look at people, and this is not my study, this is somebody that studied, Dr. Bob. He studied this stuff for years. He was one of the greats and one of the leaders in understanding how cannabis affects the brain, as well as how it can be used to help cure cancer and stuff like that. Dr. Bob passed not too long ago, but he there's so much evidence to suggest that, like authoritarians, people that are megalomaniacal scumbags with crazy, weird orange hair hats, are cannabinoid deficient. And
dopamine. You have to remember that most of the smokers out there, the tobacco smokers, too much. You'll see when we do the blood tests and analysis, you'll see a drop in their dopamine levels. Their dopamine is lower than it should be. It's an improper ratio with serotonin. But your point is about how people try to compensate, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is where you were going with this, is that they overcompensate, like with this authoritarian perspective, is that we have to overstructure our outer world. Our
Yes.
controlling of the outer world will make the inner part of us more workable, or I won't be bothered so much in my inner discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. The political thing of our society being driven by sort of feelings and negative feelings, bad feelings. People who don't know how to control their feelings ultimately.
That's the easy way of manipulation. Manipulation is not a bad word. It's just how you can direct that mindset into the being controlled by their fears, because you're drawn to your fears. Let me put it another way. If you're drawn to your fears, what does that do? The more that you hype or expound upon things that could happen, that make you less safe, right? We're gonna keep you from having to deal with your own inadequacies and inner discord and lack of understanding. We're gonna take that away from you by giving you a way of not having to look at what it is that's bothering you or putting you in your own control. And there's been a lot of very sophisticated and genius in a negative way of controlling the public by finding where those weak links are. And there's been a lot of experimentation, to see how far people will go.
It doesn't even take that much. That's the thing about it, is if anybody sort of coming along today and go, "Ooh, look, they did that old thing where they do that thing," and it manipulates people and think, what are you talking about? They've been doing that for 200 years, 300 years.
Yes.
They've known for a very long time that people are easily manipulated by their fears and easily divided over simple, stupid things that are personal choices that shouldn't affect other people. And they've used it against them throughout history. It's forever. There's no way to put any time period. That's what I started to say, because I'd thrown out some numbers. There's been going on for, it's just so long. Go back to the days of the tribe and the witch doctor figuring out how to manipulate people with fears of demons in the night and only just some of that being, related to a lack of understanding across the board about our reality and then mixed in with, this desire to be, the head guy, the guy that's in control, the one who gets to make decisions for people, and you just have that little bit of power, and that's it exactly. Is what you see is when you can control people with fear, when you leave them indecisive and you keep them divided and not together, that you have power over them and that you can manipulate them.
When I am given the reins to help someone who has no understanding or very little understanding of what's going on with them, I tell them, I say, I'm going to control the trip for a while until you can handle it on your own.
That's a good idea. Yeah, it's a funny analogy, because that's kind of how you introduce somebody new who's never tripped before.
Yeah, but I do that with every bit of facilitating their own empowerment.
Right.
Their own ability to get control, but they don't have control. They come to me broken a lot of times, and it's not something that you want to take on a role of, I'm in charge. I guess I'm in charge, but I'm not in charge to say, you must do what I say. Yes, in emergencies, you have to take that role. Okay. Without, that type of authority, it may be catastrophic. Okay. So
leadership.
Yes, that's true leadership. It isn't about disempowerment and taking power away from you. My job is to make sense and give power to you. And
it's entirely selfish. Mine is, because I figure if everybody else can get their crap together, then I don't have to worry so much about me.
Yeah, well, it's complementary. So,
yeah, right. That's a good way to put it. Better, complementary. That's a better word than selfish. Yeah.
You want to enhance their ability to, enjoy their life and make it so that if you're able to combine energies, you can make it better.
Well, that's it. It is a combined energy thing, but it's a combined individual energy, and if we're all working together toward being happy, then everybody's happy. Everybody's always working toward being happy, and far be it for me to say it, but we're all pretty much the same, and it's the general same things that make us happy, whether it's physically, biologically, or mentally. There are certain driving factors that are at the heart of what makes us happy. And some people take it a little too far. Some people can't control it. Some people are narcissistic. Some people have this idea that when it feels good, that it's okay that they roll over other people and other things to get to that feeling. And unfortunately, that's just part of human nature too. And it's just something that we all have to deal with. And it comes with self-awareness and understanding that you have limitations yourself, and that if you're going to push yourself in a particular direction, whatever it is, as a leader or whatever, that you do so in just the same way that you've done everything else in life, and you do the work, and you put in the effort, and you take it one step at a time, and make sure you know what you know before you go on to the next stage, before you take the next step. I mean, nobody should have to tell this to anybody, but the fact is that we don't sit down and have these kinds of conversations with each other often enough, certainly within the society itself.
Yeah, you've just given me another additional point to what you just said, in that there are perks that you get out of understanding how this all works, right? You get to pick it up or put it down if you want to. You have power to make decisions that most people haven't given themselves permission to make those decisions. And I'll illustrate that point on page 13. There's a segment here that is appropriate, at least in my case, so I'll read it to you. In service to others, you have an ethically legitimate reason to expansively access and inclusively integrate energies and spatial relations that go beyond the more aggrandizing fear of inadequacy, compensating cover-up for your defensively posturing ego's vanity. Then you could motivate for yourself alone. And that's entitled The Perks of Being a Healer. So it's very difficult, in other words, to be in a healing capacity and come from your ego, your self-image, your vanity, ego's vanity. And I've noticed...
But you see who those guys are. That's televangelist.
Yeah, right. Worship me. Worship what I do. And you can see, the thing is it's so obvious to me. I hear it in their voice. If I see them in a picture or in a video, I know that they're peddling the kinds of deceptive direction that takes people in a way that it emotionally traps them. You know, I don't want to trap anybody. I'm here to free you up. So if it's me.
Come on. Trapping things, that means that you have to take time to create a trap and fabricate a trap and put it out there and trap it. And then what do you do with them when you got them? Are you eating them? Yeah. Are you cutting them up and put them in the refrigerator? This is a little bit weird, but you get what I'm getting at. That when you are holding something captive, it also holds you captive as well. So if your ideal is to set out to set people on your path, it better be a big path. You better have a nice wide path so that they can walk beside you and you don't have to trample over each other.
Well, it's the thing where I want to give you the power to do what you want with it, because then I'd like to see what you do with it. You know, if I've given you the tools that you want, maybe as a child or later on in life, that enable you to navigate where you put your energy. If I'm not giving you those tools, what good am I in the healing capacity, as the healing art? Because that my job if I'm seeing that there's blocked energy because of pain, obviously I want to move that energy along with acupuncture or doing volatile oils like camphor menthol peppermint, or doing body manipulation, or whatever it is that's in my tool bag that I'm able to facilitate that healing process to be delivered. Because we're really in a unique position if you get that these tools have greater purposes for specific types of things. For example, I would not be treating, if antidepressants were never out there, although I may get some pushback on this, I think we would have been in a much better place for treating depression.
If we had taken a normal, logical, natural, if you will, approach instead of always trying to come up with some chemical alteration, and because chemical alteration is only temporary, and chemical alteration can, in a lot of cases, cause permanent physiological damage. Alcoholism is one of those examples. Just abuse of just about anything. Anything that we take in excess will eventually catch up with us and hurt us. And this includes, sort of our mental input, our mental intake, what we're receiving spiritually as well. It can do the same thing. It's not just a physical thing.
Now, that's not to say there's not a time and place for everything, but
no, absolutely, and unfortunately, there's only about a minute of it to have. So.
Okay, well, let's for what it's worth, I'm going to just say that we're always going to be faced with obstacles, whatever they come, however they come, but it's our ability, and I'm just going to say this phrase from the Moody Blues from one of their songs: face piles of trials with smiles. Okay.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's simple, and I know you may be aggravated. Frustration's just blocked energy, but you might have that blocked energy for a moment, but we're going to move on. And
And you're setting yourself up the right way when you do it. I try to explain this to people. They don't even get it. You know, the whole struggle that we have at the office and everything. Everybody has to go and have a job. And man, if you just go in, whatever it is, all that other stuff, you can leave as much of it as possible at the door as you walk in, and you smile and you say hi and hello to everybody. And it's just going to set yourself up for a better day. Then you slink in the back door, you slip in your desk, and you hope nobody sees you, and you just, oh God, here I am again, you know. Unfortunately, that's going to have to be the last word. Dr. Dean Lloyd, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you again real soon. We'll see the rest of you next week.
People who call themselves liberals, although that is a term I do not myself wish to apply to them. I am a liberal. I believe in freedom. Liberalism means of and belonging to freedom, pertaining to freedom. Those people who now call themselves liberals have misappropriated the term, because for them it simply means that they are liberal with other people's money.